Carl Jung discovered something he called the shadow, the darkest parts of yourself you've been hiding. And here's the secret no one tells you. Those hidden parts are exactly what would make her obsessed with you. Most people can't handle this truth. But you're still here, so let's go deeper. You've been good, haven't you? You've buried your anger, your selfishness, your raw desire. You've performed kindness like someone auditioning for a role you'll never get, and she's bored. Before we go further, think of the last time you held back your truth with her. That moment you swallowed your anger to keep the peace. That tightness in your chest when you bit back what you really wanted to say. Got it? Hold that feeling. Because what I'm about to show you will reveal why that moment, that exact moment you thought was you being good, is actually what killed her. Attraction. Here's what no one will tell. Have you ever noticed how the men who attract her aren't the ones who've scrubbed themselves clean? How there's something raw in them, something you can't quite name. Have you ever wondered why your niceness feels like a deficit instead of an asset? Why being considerate feels like being invisible? Why does she light up around men who carry a hint of danger, a trace of unpredictability? Why does your carefully constructed goodness feel like a costume that suffocates you? Have you ever wondered why the parts of yourself you're most ashamed of are the parts she's unconsciously searching for? What if the very parts of yourself you've been hiding, the anger, the selfishness, the raw wanting, aren't the problem? What if burying them is what's killing your magnetism? Carl Jung discovered something most people can't handle. That the darkness you've been running from is the source of your aliveness. That women don't want your performance of goodness. They want the wholeness that comes when you stop pretending you don't have a shadow. Why do you think she can sense when you're performing? When you're saying what you think she wants to hear instead of what's true? Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to maintain the mask of niceness, how it drains the life from your eyes? There's a reason the good guys finish last, and it's not because women are attracted to assholes. It's because what you're calling goodness is actually fragmentation. It's because you've cut yourself in half and offered her the acceptable piece, wondering why she doesn't feel the full force of who you are. What if integration, not perfection, is what creates magnetic attraction? What if she's waiting for you to stop hiding? Here's what we're going to explore. Why women become obsessed with men who've integrated their shadow. Not men who act out their darkness recklessly, but men who've stopped performing goodness and started embodying wholeness. And there's one truth about your shadow, one thing Jung discovered that most people never learn, that I'll reveal later. It's the reason you've been running from the wrong thing your whole life. Stay with me because this sounds impossible. The darkness you're hiding to protect her is exactly what would make her feel safe with you. If you don't understand this, you'll keep repeating the pattern, being good, being considerate, being invisible. But once you see what Jung discovered about the shadow, everything changes. By the end of this, you'll understand why your niceness repels her, why the parts you're hiding are the parts that would make her feel you, and why the men who attract her aren't better than you. They've just stopped lying about who they are. This is going to hurt to hear. But you already hurt, so what's the difference? If you're still watching, you're ready for the truth most people never hear. Let's go deeper. Let me show you what most people misunderstand about attraction. On the surface, it looks simple. Be kind, be considerate, be respectful. Do the right things, say the right words, hide the wrong impulses. Become the version of yourself that society approves of, and she'll approve too. But beneath that surface logic is a darker truth, one that Carl Jung spent his life mapping. You've been performing goodness. Not being good, performing it. There's a difference, and she can feel it. Every time you suppress your anger to seem calm. Every time you hide your desire to seem respectful. Every time you edit your truth to seem acceptable. You think you're being considerate. But what you're actually doing is fragmenting yourself. You're taking the raw, whole, complicated truth of who you are, and you're cutting away every piece that doesn't fit the image of the good man. And what's left? A shadow. Everything you've disowned. Everything you've deemed unacceptable. Carl Jung called this the shadow. The parts of yourself you've repressed, denied, hidden in the basement of your psyche. your anger, your selfishness, your lust, your aggression, your need, not because these things are evil, but because somewhere along the way you learned they were unlovable. Here's what Jung understood. The shadow doesn't disappear when you bury it. It seeps out in passive aggression, in resentment, in the fakeness she can sense but can't quite name, in the flatness of your presence when you're too busy monitoring yourself to actually be with her. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to be around someone who's too nice? How their agreeableness feels suffocating instead of comforting? That's because you're not meeting a person. You're meeting a performance. And performances don't create attraction. They create distance. She doesn't want your goodness. She wants your wholeness. Read that again. It's darker than you think. When you hide your shadow, you're not protecting her from your darkness. You're robbing her of your full presence. You're giving her half a man and wondering why she doesn't feel the full weight of who you are. Carl Jung said, "I'd rather be whole than good," because he understood that goodness without integration is just another mask. And masks don't inspire obsession. They inspire polite distance. Have you ever felt the difference between someone who's genuinely present and someone who's carefully controlled? Can you sense how one feels alive, dangerous in the best way, while the other feels safe but lifeless? Here's the reframe. What you're calling bad behavior in the men she's attracted to isn't actually bad. It's integrated. They're not performing niceness. They're expressing their full range. They get angry. They want things. They take up space. They're not assholes. They're just not pretending to be saints, and she responds to that, not because she wants to be treated badly, but because she can finally feel a real person standing in front of her. Think about the last time she seemed distant, uninterested. Were you being yourself? Or were you being the version of yourself you thought she wanted? The men who attract her aren't hiding their hunger. They're not pretending they don't have needs, don't feel jealousy, don't get frustrated. They've integrated their shadow. They know they're capable of darkness, and instead of running from it, they've made peace with it. That's what Carl Jung meant by shadow work. Not becoming your darkness, not acting out every impulse, but acknowledging it, owning it, integrating it so fully that you're no longer split in two. When you do that, something shifts. You stop performing, you start embodying, and she feels the difference in her body before her mind can name it. Have you ever wondered why she pulls away when you're trying your hardest to be perfect? Why your effort seems to repel her instead of draw her in? It's because perfection isn't human, and she doesn't want to date a saint. She wants to be with someone who's alive, someone who's integrated enough to be dangerous and safe at the same time. There's more to this, something deeper about what happens when you stop hiding your shadow. But first, you need to see what you've been doing and why it's been costing you everything. Now here's the truth you don't want to hear. The reason you're hiding your shadow isn't because you're trying to be good. It's because you're terrified of being abandoned. Somewhere in your past, maybe in childhood, maybe in your first heartbreak, you learned that certain parts of you were unacceptable. Your anger made people uncomfortable. Your needs were too much. Your wanting was selfish. Your aggression was scary, so you made a deal with yourself. You'd bury those parts, hide them so deep that maybe, just maybe, you'd finally be loved. And the tragedy is, it worked, sort of. You became acceptable. People liked you. You were safe, reliable, good, but you were never fully seen. Carl Jung understood this wound better than almost anyone. He knew that every human carries a shadow, that we all have parts we've disowned to survive, to belong, to be loved. And he knew that this disowning, this fragmentation, is the source of our deepest suffering, because here's the truth. You can't be loved for who you are if you're only showing half of yourself. Think about it. Really sit with this. Have you ever looked in her eyes and felt her really seeing you? Or do you feel like you're performing behind glass, watching her look through you? When you hide your anger, your frustration, your raw desire, you think you're protecting the relationship. But what you're actually doing is making it impossible for her to love the real you. She's falling for a ghost. A version of you that doesn't fully exist, because you've been hiding in plain sight, and some part of her knows it. She can't name it, but she feels it. The distance, The performance. The sense that she's dating someone who's holding their breath, waiting for permission to be themselves. That's not attraction. That's anxiety. Imagine you're a house. For years, you've kept the first floor spotless, cleaned, decorated, perfect for visitors. But there's a basement you've locked. Down there is everything you've deemed unacceptable. Your rage at being overlooked, your hunger for recognition, your jealousy, your selfishness. And here's what happens. You invite her into your beautiful first floor. You show her the art on the walls, the careful arrangement of who you think you should be. But she can hear the sounds from the basement. The scratching, the muffled voices, the weight of all your repressing pressing up through the floorboards. She doesn't consciously know what she's sensing, but she feels the instability. A house built on a foundation of denied truth. And no matter how perfect that first floor is, she can't relax. Because she knows, the way animals know before earthquakes, that something beneath the surface is about to give. But a man who's integrated his shadow? He's unlocked the basement, not to live down there, but to acknowledge it, to bring those parts into the light. His house has all the floors accessible, nothing hidden, nothing denied. And when she walks in, she feels the solidity, the wholeness, a foundation built on self-acceptance rather than self-deception. That is what creates obsession. Not games, not tactics. Integration. Jung knew this. The more you run from your shadow, the more power it has over you. It doesn't disappear. It festers. And it leaks out in ways you can't control. In resentment, in passive aggression, in the deadness behind your eyes. When you're performing goodness you don't feel, but when you integrate it, when you acknowledge that yes, you're capable of anger, of selfishness, of wanting, something miraculous happens. You become whole. And wholeness is magnetic in a way that fragmented perfection will never be. Have you ever noticed how some men can be rough around the edges, even flawed, and women are drawn to them like gravity, while you, with all your careful consideration, remain invisible? It's not that they're better men. It's that they're whole men. They've stopped pretending. They've integrated their shadow. They know they're capable of darkness, and instead of running from it in terror, they've learned to dance with it. This is the wound you're carrying. The belief that your wholeness is too much. That if she saw the parts you're hiding, the jealousy, the hunger, the anger, the need, she'd leave. But here's the devastating truth. She's already leaving. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally. Because you can't connect deeply with someone who's only showing you their highlight reel. Intimacy requires wholeness. It requires the courage to say, this is me, all of me. The light and the shadow, and I'm done fragmenting myself for your approval. Stop reading for a moment. Really feel this. Where in your body do you hold the belief that your wholeness is too much? Is it the tightness in your throat when you swallow words? The ache in your chest when you perform calm you don't feel? The hollowness when you know she's seeing the performance, not you? This isn't intellectual. This is the wound. And until you feel it, really let yourself feel the cost of fragmentation, you'll keep performing. Because the pain you know, hiding, still feels safer than the pain you fear, being seen and rejected. But here's what Jung knew. The pain you fear is liberation. Being seen fully and loved is on the other side. Being seen fully and rejected. That just reveals who isn't meant for your wholeness. But here's the shadow beneath the shadow. You're not afraid she'll abandon you for showing your darkness. You already abandoned those parts of yourself years ago. Her rejection just confirms the rejection you've already internalized. The wound isn't that she can't love your shadow. It's that you can't. She's just the mirror showing you what you've already done to yourself. When you hide your shadow from her, you're not just lying to her. You're lying to yourself. You're saying, these parts of me aren't worthy of love, and she believes you. Because if you can't accept your whole self, why should she? Carl Jung knew that shadow work isn't about becoming your darkness. It's about no longer being controlled by it. It's about integrating it so fully that you're not split between the person you are and the person you think you should be. Have you ever felt the exhaustion of maintaining the performance? The way your body tightens when you suppress what you really feel? The hollow ache when she looks through you instead of at you? that ache. That's your soul screaming at you to stop the performance. Because here's what Jung discovered, what he tried to teach us. The path to being loved isn't through perfection. It's through integration. It's through becoming so whole that your presence is undeniable. The men she becomes obsessed with aren't men without shadows. They're men who've stopped running from them, and there's a paradox here, one that changes everything. Stay with me, but first, you need to feel the weight of what you've been doing to yourself, and why it's been costing you more than her attraction. It's been costing you yourself. Remember that truth I mentioned? Here it is. The darkness you're hiding to protect her is exactly what would make her feel safe with you. Read that again. Let it disturb you. You think by suppressing your anger, your jealousy, your selfish wants, you're creating safety. But what you're actually creating is a time bomb. Because unintegrated darkness doesn't disappear. It festers, and she can sense it. The resentment you won't express, the needs you won't voice, the rage you're white-knuckling into submission. That's not safety. That's a time bomb. The kind that goes off when you least expect it because you've been white-knuckling your truth for too long. But a man who's integrated his shadow, who knows he's capable of anger, of selfishness, of darkness, and has made peace with it, who can feel fury and not be controlled by it? Who can want her and not need her? That man is safe because he's not repressing. He's not performing. He's integrated. This is what women sense that they can't name. Why the nice guy feels unsafe despite doing everything right. And why the integrated man feels safe even when he's rough around the edges. She doesn't want someone who claims to be incapable of hurting her. She wants someone who knows they're capable of it and chooses not to. That's power. That's integrity. That's the integration Jung was pointing toward. Have you ever noticed how the men she's drawn to can express anger without losing control? How they can be selfish without being cruel? How they take up space without apology? It's not that they're assholes. It's that they're not lying about being human. And here's where it all connects. Remember at the beginning when I asked why your niceness feels like a deficit? Why being considerate feels like being invisible? Because it's not niceness. It's repression. And repression isn't attractive. It's suffocating. Real kindness comes from wholeness. From a man who could be selfish, but chooses generosity. Who could be cruel, but chooses compassion. Not because he's incapable of darkness, but because he's integrated it. That's the secret Carl Jung discovered about what creates magnetic attraction. It's not about being good or bad. It's about being whole. When you integrate your shadow, something shifts in how she experiences you. You're no longer performing. You're no longer seeking approval. You're no longer managing her perception. You're just there, fully, without apology. And that presence, that integrated, unapologetic wholeness, is what creates obsession. Not because you're playing games, not because you're withholding, but because she finally feels a real person standing in front of her. Someone who's not afraid of their own darkness. Someone who's done the work to become whole. This is what Jung meant when he said individuation. The process of becoming who you truly are is the most important work you can do. Because until you integrate your shadow, you're not offering her a person. You're offering her a performance. And performances, no matter how good, will never inspire the kind of attraction you're craving. Have you ever wondered why this matters so much? Why her attraction feels like life or death? Because it is, not literally, but symbolically. Her rejection isn't just about her. It's about the parts of yourself you've rejected, the shadow you've hidden, the wholeness you've denied. When she's not attracted to you, it confirms your deepest fear, that the real you, the whole you, is unlovable. But here's the truth Jung discovered, that fear is a lie. The real you is lovable. The whole you, shadow and all, is not only lovable, it's magnetic. You just have to stop hiding it. The men she becomes obsessed with, they're not performing wholeness to get her. They've integrated their darkness to reclaim themselves. And her attraction is simply the byproduct of a man who's no longer fragmented. That's the paradox. That's the secret. That's what Carl Jung understood about human nature, that most people never learn. Your darkness isn't the problem. Hiding it is. So what do you do with this? How do you actually integrate your shadow? Shadow integration isn't about acting out your darkness. It's about no longer being controlled by it. It's about becoming whole, not for her, but for yourself. Because you're exhausted from the performance. Because you're dying inside the costume of niceness. Because the cost of approval has become higher than the cost of truth. Shadow integration is about honesty, about no longer pretending you're incapable of the full range of human emotion. Start here. Stop performing. The next time you feel anger, don't swallow it to seem calm. Feel it, express it. Not in rage, in truth. I'm frustrated right now. That bothered me. I don't like this. Simple words, but for someone who's spent their life performing goodness, they feel revolutionary. Notice what happens when you stop hiding your needs. When you say, I want this, without apology. When you prioritize yourself without guilt. When you say no because you mean no, not because you're trying to be difficult. She might resist at first, because you've trained her to expect the performance. But watch what happens underneath the resistance. Watch how she leans in, how her eyes light up, how she finally feels like she's meeting a real person. Carl Jung said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are includes your shadow, your anger, your selfishness, your hunger, not as things to act out, but as things to integrate. Have you been pretending you don't get jealous? Stop pretending. Feel it, own it. Yeah, I feel jealous sometimes. I'm working with it. That's not weakness, that's integration. Have you been hiding your desire because you're afraid it's too much? Stop hiding. Let her feel how much you want her. Not in desperation, in integrated masculine presence. There's a difference between needy wanting and whole wanting, and she can feel the difference. Here's what changes when you integrate your shadow. You stop seeking approval, because you're no longer ashamed of who you are. You're no longer performing a version of yourself you think she wants. You're just yourself, whole, integrated, unapologetic, and that shift from performance to presence is what creates magnetic attraction. This isn't easy. Carl Jung knew it wasn't easy. He spent decades doing this work himself. But here's what he discovered. The alternative is worse. The alternative is a life of performance, of fragmentation, of wondering why no one really sees you. But you know what's harder? Living as half a person for the rest of your life. The alternative is being liked, but never truly wanted. Is that what you want? To be safe, acceptable, nice, and invisible? Or do you want to be whole? Not for her, not for attraction, for yourself. Because you're exhausted from the performance. Because the cost of approval has become unbearable. The choice is yours. But understand this, she can't become obsessed with a ghost, with a performance. With half a man, she becomes obsessed with wholeness, with integration, with a man who's done the work to stop lying about who he is. Think about the last time you suppressed your truth to keep the peace. How did that feel? Did it create more intimacy or more distance? Now imagine what would happen if you stopped. If you integrated your shadow so fully that your presence became undeniable, if you showed up as the whole, complicated, flawed, alive person you actually are, that's what she's been waiting for. Not perfection, wholeness. Carl Jung spent his life teaching this, that the path to being loved is through becoming whole, through integrating the shadow you've been running from, through having the courage to stop performing and start being. This is the work. Not tactics, not tricks. Shadow integration. And here's what I know. If you're still here, if you've stayed with me through this entire journey, you're ready. Some part of you knows it's time to stop hiding. So here's my challenge to you. This week, stop performing once. Just once. Feel your anger and express it. Voice your need without apology. Be selfish in one moment. Let her see a piece of your shadow and watch what happens. Not in her response, that might surprise you, but in yourself. Watch how it feels to stop fragmenting, to stop performing, to take one step toward wholeness, because that's where your magnetism lives. Not in the goodness you've been performing, but in the wholeness you've been hiding. Carl Jung was right. You'd rather be whole than good, and she'd rather you were whole too. Stop hiding your shadow. Integrate it. Become whole. That's how men become magnetic. Not by performing wholeness to get her, but by reclaiming themselves. End her attraction. That's just what happens when a man stops fragmenting. That's the secret Jung spent his life revealing. Your darkness isn't the problem. Your shame about it is own it. Integrate it. Become whole. She's waiting for you to stop performing, so stop.